Heidi ho friends, welcome to Workplace 20. I'm going to go through this banking basics kind of booklet with you. I'm going to explain a few things, talk about a few things. I'm going to ask you to pause the video along the way, complete portions of it, answer some questions, and then when you're done, you're going to hand in this whole booklet for marks. And this booklet is kind of an abbreviated version of an entire outcome, WA 20.08. So hopefully some pretty easy marks for you, a nice little boost, okay? So the first thing that we're going to talk about in this banking basics is different kinds of bank accounts. So if you go to the bank and you want to open up an account, there are different things that you can choose, okay? So kind of the most common type of an account is a checking account. These accounts are best for just day-to-day banking. If you're going to make a lot of debit card purchases, I know we don't write a lot of checks, but if you're going to do kind of maybe some e-transfers and pay some bills and use the ATM, a checking account is probably the best thing for you. It has very low service charges, and so it's a good idea for a lot of people. Now, we also always recommend that you also have a savings account. So a savings account is focusing on saving. So if you have a job, what I'd highly recommend is that you um, take a portion of every paycheck and put it into a savings account and leave it there and let it sit. Savings account, usually, sometimes they'll have some higher service charges. Maybe not. Some student savings accounts don't, but usually a savings account will earn interest, and that's the best thing about it is that they'll actually pay you for keeping your money in there. So you want to put into that account and let the money just sit. Okay, so there's going to be, you don't want a savings account if you're going to make a whole bunch of transactions because sometimes they have transaction charges, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Another kind of account, now you can't have these until you are 18, but once you turn 18, you can open up what's called a tax-free savings account. So this is a savings account where no income is paid on the earnings, and it allows investments of up to $5,000 a year. So you can actually put money into this account. Now, this might be hard for you to understand at this point in your life, but once you turn 18 and you have a job, you have to pay income tax. Okay, so that's money that's paid to the government. So a tax-free savings account allows you to invest your own money into this account, and you don't actually have to pay the tax on it. Okay, so it's a good way to kind of make investments without too much risk. So what I want you to do is pause the video now and answer these three questions here that are asking you about to make a judgment on what do you think would be the best kind of account for Bella if she wanted these three scenarios. Okay, so pause the video and fill in from the chart up above which are the best kind of accounts for her to use. All right, now that we're back and you've answered those first three questions, let's go on to the second part of this booklet. And what we want to do is we want to talk about when you are opening an account, lots of times you can go to the bank and you have options of things that you can open. So here are four different types of checking accounts. So we have talked about that checking accounts are the best option kind of for day-to-day banking, but this one actually offers four different kinds of checking accounts. And this little chart kind of summarizes the important information. So I'll go through it. So this monthly fee. So this is a fee that you pay at the bank to have your money in their account. So you can see it ranges from free on the student account to $12.95 on the unlimited account. Now, if you have a minimum balance in your account, then lots of times your fee is free. That's how the bank gets you to keep money in your account. So on this low fee account, if you have $1,000, this $3.95 fee is actually waived and they won't charge you anything to keep your money in there as long as you maintain a minimum balance of $1,000. Okay. On the unlimited account, the fee is high, but if you can keep $3,000 in there, then they're going to waive that fee. Now, transactions, so those are things like ATM withdrawals, debit card purchases, basically anytime you go to a bank machine and use your bank card. So sometimes they are unlimited. So on the unlimited account, you can use it as much as you want. On the student account, you can use it as much as you want. But in these other two, they allow a certain number of free transactions. And then if you go over and above that, they'll charge you per transaction. So on this low fee account, you're allowed free 10 free transactions in a month. But if you go over that, so suppose you had 12 transactions in a month, then you'd have to pay 65 cents twice for each of those transactions above and beyond the 10. Okay, so I'm going to go through an example here of how you would calculate and make a recommendation, and then I'm going to ask you to do a couple, okay? So Tegan is a set designer. In a typical month, she makes 16 transactions and she keeps a minimum balance of $650. Okay, so let's highlight our important things here. She makes 16 transactions and her minimum balance is usually $650. So which account should she choose and why? So you might be able to narrow it down quicker, but I'm just going to go through each of the accounts and explain how we'd figure out how much it would cost her. So if she went with a low fee account, you could see that she'd have to pay the $3.95 fee because her balance is below $1,000, right? So she'd have to pay for that. And if she has 16 transactions, this one only allows 10. So she would have 6 transactions at 65 cents each, which would charge her $3.90 just for her transactions. So her monthly fee plus her transaction fee would cost her $7.85 to have that bank account. Okay. In the value account, the $8.95 fee is going to be charged for her because she has a balance below $2,000. But all of her transactions would be free because she's allowed 25 transactions and she only has 16. So she only is going to be charged that $8.95. Same thing with the unlimited. She's going to be charged the $12.95 because her balance is below $3,000. But she gets an unlimited number of transactions, so the total will just be $12.95. And if she was allowed the student account, now the student account, clearly you'd have to be a student to get the student account. But there's no fee. Everything would be completely free. So if she was a student, I would definitely recommend the student account for her because everything is completely free. If not, then she might be best off going with, honestly, I mean, the low fee or the value account, and maybe the value account is better because she's only allowed 10 transactions, and what if she has more, so I would go with either the low fee or the value account. Okay, so that is kind of how we go through and analyze. So what I want you to do now is to take a look at these two questions, and using that same chart, you're going to analyze which account Jeremiah should use when he averages 20 transactions and has a minimum balance of $3,500, and you're going to say why, okay? And yeah, just can go through these questions and answer them. They involve some calculations. So this one's asking you about like comparing the low fee account and the value account. But I want you to pause the video now and answer these questions about Jeremiah and Joanne. Okay, now that you have done that, this next section is about debit cards. So you most likely have a debit card yourself or know somebody who has a debit card. If you don't have a debit card, then ask an adult in your life or somebody that you know that has a debit card. So I'm just asking you to basically short answer these questions about how you use it, your PIN card, difference between debit and credit, debit card and using cash, advantages and disadvantages, things like that. Okay, so you can pause the video now and run through these questions on debit cards. The last session for us to look at is online banking. So probably if you bank, you may have the bank app on your phone. Most major banks have an app where you can we call it online banking because we used to actually physically sit at a computer and bank, which you still can, but now a lot of people use just the app on their phone. Okay, and so you can do basically anything from your phone with the exception of depositing or withdrawing cash. If you are dealing in cash, you need to go to the actual bank itself. Also, if you needed to get set up for a loan or anything like that, you'd have to go to the bank, but you can pay bills, transfer funds, you can send e-transfers, you can even deposit paper checks. Some people still write paper checks. You can deposit them. A lot of banks have image deposit now, so you just take a picture of it. You can open up a new account. Pretty much anything that you want to do, you can do with your banking app. Okay, so to access your banking app, you're going to need two things. You're going to need your debit card number and you're going to need a secure password. Now, I can't stress enough that the banking password. So I know that I have like a couple of passwords I kind of rotate between for most things, but my banking password is different from every other password that I have. Okay. Like I just think it's super important to do that, that you have to keep your banking information very private. You want to always keep your PIN number private, but your online banking information, like that's opening up everything, all of your accounts to everybody. And so it's important to make sure that you have a password. I like to keep it unique. It's different than every other password that I have anywhere else. Okay. So there are some questions down below here for you to answer about online banking. So you can go ahead and do that. If you're unsure, you can research or ask an adult. Do your best, and you're going to hand those in to me. When you're done, this whole booklet is going to come in, and it's going to be your mark for the outcome WA 20.08. So great job getting that done.